Hi, my name's George, and this is my Tremorz interview.
So how did you start out in music?
Well, I don't know, how did I start out? I guess I have always loved music. I was thinking of sort of what you might ask me before we jumped on the
Yeah.
chat. And I literally, from the first song that I ever remember hearing on the radio was I Try by Macy Gray. And I remember hearing that, and I probably would have been before primary school at least. And yeah, I've just always loved singing. Like, I always used to love singing to the radio, and I got into singing lessons when I was about 8 years old. My mum put me in some, and yeah, I just used to love it from there. But I think it would have been, I was about 9, and my singing teacher at the time, we were doing a lot of like classical sort of style songs that I'd learned, and I really didn't like it. So I stopped for a while. And then again, I started up with another teacher, and she sort of introduced me to soul, and we'd sing Aretha Franklin, and I just from there became obsessed. And yeah, I just loved it. So then it would just be sort of singing in the shower. I never really did any big performances or anything. I think I did a few little TV commercials. So I met these two brothers at the time through my singing teacher, and they ran a production company, and they composed music for TV commercials. And so I did a few of those, like ones for Mazda, and I did like a crappy, like literally a fertilizer ad, and those sort of things. And I got paid. So I guess that was like my first paid job. And then I sort of started high school, and I just stopped completely because I think it was the thing of just maybe not being so confident with it. And also, like, I didn't really have, no one in my family was musically inclined or anything. So none of my friends at the time really were into music. None of them sang, or, you know, no one played guitar or anything. So I sort of just stopped. But I'd always sort of, since I was little, I've always dreamt of doing it. So the dream was still going, but I just stopped. Yeah, and then wasn't until maybe 6 months ago that I started up again more seriously about it. I'm nearly 25, and I sort of hit that wall, and I was like, what am I doing? And I had almost like a little breakdown about it. And yeah, now I'm back on board with it. Yeah.
And so what made you get back into it? Like, you did uni, were you working, and then you were like, I really want to get back into music. So what really pushed you?
Yeah. Well, I started, so after school, again, like, I'd always wanted to do music, but I just never did it. It was one of those things where I thought, well, like, I'm not good enough. I don't have any theory behind me. Like, I don't know anyone in the industry that could help me. And I just sort of thought it's a dream, but it like will never happen. So I went into physio, like I did occupational therapy. So it's sort of like a blend of physio and psychology, I guess. And I did a couple of years at uni, and I was just depressed, and I didn't love it at all. And I was working part-time as well. So after that, I sort of dropped out of uni, and I started working. I actually worked for a portable toilet company. And then I worked, it's really fun. I used to sell portable toilets, and then yeah, yeah, and that was also just terrible, as you'd probably imagine it to be. And then I worked as a makeup artist. I worked as a waitress. What else? Oh, then I went into account managing. And then not long ago, so a year ago, I was working for a mortgage broking franchise in the head office, doing sort of like digital marketing. So I did that, and just like continuously all through doing that, on my work breaks, I'd always just be listening to music, writing in my notes. When I'd get home, I'd just be, again, like looking up different songs and styles and artists, and it's just always been the dream, but I was just doing something else, and it was making me really depressed. So one day I sort of had a chat with my dad, and I was like, because he's sort of my dad through my whole life, he's always sort of said, you need to do music, you need to sing, that's what you love doing, you need to pursue it. And yeah, so I had a chat with him, and he sort of just said, why don't you just quit and, you know, quit your job and just start doing music? You just have to do it. And he's like, go to another music school and start up. So I went down to part-time. I did a couple of days of work a week and started at a singing school, a local one in, where is it, in South Melbourne. And yeah, and so I started singing, and then from there I just met more people, and now they're some of my best friends that I met, and they're all singers and musicians, and that's what really inspired me, I guess, to start up again. And like having people around me to be like, you know, you really love doing this and you're good, and I think you could go far with it. And I think it was just needing people around me that were doing the same thing.
What's been your biggest influence?
So I guess when I sort of started, I'm not with the music school anymore. So I was only there for about 6 months, because I really just sort of, at the start, I was wanting to go, I guess, for the community, but to also improve on technique. And sort of once I found like I was sort of in that groove, I stopped. I sort of started just messaging a whole lot of artists, like local artists from Melbourne, for some advice and just, you know, to see if they'd like to collaborate, that sort of thing. And a lot of people don't reply back. A few people do. And Blasco was one of the people that I messaged. And at the time, I don't think it was even to really network. I just had sent him a message saying, you've got a fantastic voice. Like, your music really inspires me. And yeah, he got back to me, and then we ended up catching up. And then from there, we just like grew a friendship, and he's sort of been, through the start of my journey, like a huge influence, just with his, you know, he's really been really supportive for me. And yeah, he really inspires me to keep like doing my own thing, and, you know, with my writing and recording so far. So I'd say he's been like a big influence.
Any, like, what would you say is like the best advice you've heard?
Probably to just, I think I could have, you know, I could have been living my dream and being more happy like I am. I could have had this ages ago if I'd just sort of done it. And I think when I first sort of, I haven't actually released any songs yet, but I'm planning to at the end of this year. So I've been sort of, I guess, working on an EP. I've been working with a few different people. And prior to that, so I first got in the studio a year ago, and I met Rob Amoruso. So he's a producer and an artist as well. And he sort of said to me, you know, like, why now? Why are you starting now? And we got chatting, and I sort of just said, like I said before to you, that I just had it. I've always wanted to do this, but I just have not had the belief in myself to do it. And I've had the motivation to, but I've just been way too scared and fearful of it. And I don't really know why. And so when we started as well, I started recording my first song and writing, and just every 10 minutes I'd stop and I'd be like, this isn't good, and I don't think I sound good, and I'm not sure, is this okay? And I kept asking, is this all right? And he sort of just stopped me, and he said, you know, you just need to stop overthinking and stop comparing yourself to other people, and you just need to, you know, believe in yourself more and just forget about the business of it too, and just have fun with it, because that's why you sing and that's why you do it. So I think that would be the best piece of advice. When I speak, I always go on and ramble, and then I forget what the question was.
No.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did.
Is that what you asked me? What the best advice was?
Yep, best
Is that
advice.
what you said?
Just go out and do it.
Yeah, go out and do it, and to just stop. It's, you know, what Blasco always says to me as well, just stop, you know, comparing yourself to other people, especially when music is so subjective. So there's not really, you know, there's not a right or wrong way with it. You just have to, it's your art and it's organic, and you do it because you love it. So I think that would be the best piece of advice. And I still try to remind myself, you know, of that every day, every time I sing and every time I write.
And have you had any really bad advice that you're like, no?
Bad advice? Yeah, not so much advice, I guess, but I've had, I guess, sort of what I said before, like I went into sort of recording and writing, because I mean, like, doing gigs is a lot different to writing your own stuff and putting out your own music, because I guess when you're doing a gig and singing at a cafe or a bar, it's, you know, fun, and it's what, you know, there's sort of, you get paid at the end of it, and that's like your transaction at the end. But with putting music out, there's the whole side of, you know, the royalties and the splits, and then putting it out at the right time and this and that. And I've had, it sort of like takes away from the creative side of it. And so far I've been in a few sessions, like writing and recording sessions, where I've sort of had, you know, producers be like, you know, this is what you should do, and this is more commercial, and this is more poppy, and it's not going to turn people away because it's more similar to what's out at the moment, and that's what you should be putting out. And for a while I was sort of like, oh, okay, that's what I need to be doing. So I was sort of writing all these songs that just didn't resonate with me at all, and it felt really like unnatural, and I just didn't, I'd come out with a song that I hated, and then you know, I'm not going to want to put that out. And it sort of was just because it was going to be commercial and people were going to like it, and maybe I was going to make money off the streams eventually. So I guess that would be like the worst sort of, I guess it's not so much advice, but I guess just
situation.
going, yeah. So a lot of people are more inclined to be that way, you know, putting music out just because it's going to, you know, do well.
So when did you do your transition? When was your first performance? Like,
my first performance, I guess, I did when I started at the singing school a year ago. So that was more recently. They had a performance evening, and that was the very sort of first time that I'd ever sung on a stage. And it was there were only about 50 people there. And that was only a year ago. And I remember the whole week leading up to it, I just did not eat. Even though it's what I love doing, I just was terrified still of being in front of other people and singing. So yeah, I didn't eat. I was so nervous. And then I remember getting up on the stage and I sang. I think I like blacked out while I was singing. I don't know where I went, but apparently I finished, and then I came off the stage, and my sister was there. I didn't let any of my family or friends come because I was like, I'm way too nervous to have people there. But my sister came, and then I ran out to my car and I just spewed everywhere because I was so nervous. And she sat me down and she was like, why are you like this? Why are you doing this if you're spewing and you hate it? And I thought, no, I loved it, but I was just really nervous. And so that was my first performance that I ever did. And then from there, I didn't do it again until I did my first gig. So that was a paid gig with my partner. So he's a producer and he plays everything as well. So we did a gig together and I sang, and it was at a winery for, again, only 50 people. And that got a little bit easier. So we did that. And then I did a few more of them. And then after that, so I'd say my first proper performance was with a DJ producer called London Topaz, and he was doing a summer tour, and so we met through Blasco again, and he sort of gave me the opportunity to sing a few of his tracks that he'd already put out with female vocalists featuring on them. So we toured together and I sang with him. So we did 3 or 4 performances, and the biggest one was at Beyond the Valley. So we did that. So that was crazy for me because it hadn't even really been, it had only been sort of a space of 6 months where I'd, I guess, thrown myself into it. And then I was already on a huge stage and there were hundreds of people and I just loved it. And afterwards I didn't feel like vomiting. Like I was so excited. It was completely different. So yeah, and that was the first time, and it was just, everything was so new, and it was really weird because even though I wasn't singing obviously my own original music, it was just having that, like I'd always dreamt of doing that. So already I was just like, this is what I want to be doing. This is crazy. I just couldn't believe it. So yeah, that was really fun. So that was probably my first proper performance.
Yeah. Do you know what your EP is going to be called? Not yet.
No, not yet. Not yet. There's sort of a ongoing theme throughout all the songs that I've been writing. I've probably got about 10 or so songs that none of them are really finished yet. I guess they still need to be mastered, and I've got a few little changes that I want to keep going back to because I feel like I'm still growing in terms of my sound and you know, knowing what I want as an artist. But I yeah, there's an ongoing theme about boys, so I think I don't know, it'll be maybe a bit like a heartbreak album. I'm not sure, EP, sorry. So yeah, not sure what the name will be yet, but I'll let you know.
So what would be the piece of advice you give yourself, 15-year-old you?
15-year-old me, to stop being an effing idiot and to just do it.